Welcome back to the Creepy Files. Today we're going to talk about one of Trevor Henderson's creations. Now, I'll probably be covering other Trevor Henderson creations, but for now, let's talk about Siren Head. Let's just start by looking through all the posts that include Siren Head, as well as lore, and other posts that I feel may be connected. All the posts I'm going to be going through are from Trevor Henderson's Instagram page. This is the first Siren Head post. The caption reads, "She was on vacation with her husband, and they were scoping out graveyards on the way, as you do, when she saw it, rising out of the old cemetery, big as an old macabre telephone pole. Was this some kind of bizarre art piece the authorities hadn't gotten wise to yet? Even as she stepped out of the car, the megaphones on its head screeched to life.
9, 18, 1, child, 17, remove, vial."
A buzzing, doubled voice screamed random words at her. At this point, it jerked into motion, striding down the hill towards her. Next post. July 16th, 1995. Chad Buick is found wandering the woods of Tanyard Creek in northwest Arkansas. He is admitted with minor injuries, and when questioned, he claims his friends were taken or killed by something huge striding through the trees that mimicked their voices. The next post, captioned, "On the back of the photo is written, Arizona Desert Family Vacation, 1966, in magic marker. The rash of disappearances had two commonalities. It was always people walking the side streets on their way home from work from some social outing, and it was always dark by the time people started wondering where they were. It was always past when the streetlights come on. Here is where things get interesting. The head is no longer a siren, but instead a street lamp. But I'll get into that in the analysis. The next post is Siren Head Facts. Siren Head is around 40 feet tall, about the size of a telephone pole. Skin looks like rusty metal, but is actually dried and mummified skin. Arms are as long as the length of the body, big reach like a gibbon. Has been seen with different head arrangements, though it is unclear whether or not these are subspecies, or if it's able to change its head to better hide when hunting. It is a highly skilled predator using deception and subterfuge to confuse and disorient prey. It is unclear if or how it gains nourishment from the things it kills. Speakers constantly pump out strange music, odd snippets of conversation, and angrily shouted words and numbers. When it's asleep, it plays white noise. Speakers are the only actual metal in its body, fused with its dried skin. Abdomen and chest show wires pressed against the skin. They writhe when it's agitated. Will remain motionless while hunting, sometimes for days at a time. Most frequently seen in rural town areas and in heavy wooded areas. A head will rotate on its neck as it broadcasts, much like an owl looking for prey. Next we have this post. Photo discovered from an abandoned cell phone by father and son hikers in Yellowstone National Park, July 14th, 2016. Now, I decided to include this one because I think its design is similar enough to be related, even though you can't tell if it's actually a siren head. Next, visitors to the motel that night dismissed the item as a piece of grotesque statue art, according to Goodnight Inn manager Ann Garnick, not knowing its appearance preceded a grim, and then it cuts off. The next Siren Head post is,
"For the next 30
Please, I
seconds,
need help.
this station will conduct a test of the emergency
Can anyone
broadcast
hear me?
system. This is only
Let
a
me out.
test. This only a test."
This one simply has the caption, "Followed on my morning walk." Again, I'm including this because while I feel like they don't look exactly the same, they could be similar or related. Next post, the notion that vampire rules applied was quickly squashed. It took a step towards the doorway as worm-like fingers curled over the top of the frame. Next, when they'd been gone long enough for the parents to get worried, the rangers responding found where they'd set up and the remains. And the photos. Now, while this one has a humanoid head, I still feel it's worth putting here. Next, we have another picture of just Siren Head. Many residents were awoken in the late hours of the night before the incident, complaining of sirens and garbled announcements echoing across the lake. Here we have another one that's a little bit different. No one seemed to see the same thing he did, so he just drove on the shoulder until it passed, and tried not to look into his rearview mirror until he'd made the turn and was long out of sight. This one is especially interesting because it seems to have 4 arms. This one is quite simple, simply reading "Disappearance in Crewdson, Indiana." Next, we have the last Siren Head post on the Instagram at the time of recording. We heard it long before we crested the hill and saw it in the fields, unmoving. I could tell it was looking at me, even though it didn't have a head. So let's figure out what it all means, at least in my opinion. From what I gather, and from a little bit of speculation on my part, Siren Head is a 40-foot tall, half-metal, half-organic, anomalous creature that feeds on humans. However, it doesn't eat them. Instead, it sort of consumes them into itself, not physically, more metaphysically. His form of consumption is adding you to his roster of voices, sort of like the face stealer in Avatar. That way he can then lure other people. However, Siren Head isn't the only one of these creatures. He's a subset of Trevor Henderson's universe. Some have humanoid heads, some have other disguised heads, some even have more than 4 limbs. However, how these other versions eat is unclear. Now let's talk about their movement, the disappearances, and their locations. The appearances seem to range from Arkansas to Arizona to Indiana to Idaho, Iowa to Idaho, Canada to Mexico, and is seen in areas from forests to cities. This is one reason I think these are different creatures. They've adapted to different environments. However, all of them appear to live in the non-coastal, middle-south United States. They move slowly, which means they mostly wait for their prey to come to them. They use their appearance as camouflage, typically hiding in plain sight, using their means of camo, in Siren Head's case it being his Siren Head, as a way to attract prey. In Siren Head's case, he can use the voices he steals to lure people to him, although it's still unclear whether his random words voice is one of his victims or his original voice. What did you think of this episode of the Creepy Files? Let me know in the comments below, or on my Instagram or Twitter. You can also suggest what I should cover next over there too. See you all next time.
Bitch! A man has fallen into the river in Lego City. Start the new rescue helicopter. Hey!